Hi, this is Greg Kesich at the Press Herald in the editorial department. I'm here with Sarah Collins, the assistant editorial page editor. And we've come back from a holiday week, and we want to have a little fun with reader comments. We're here at One City Center, Portland's version of Trump Tower. And we've lost our perch on the 5th floor, but now
we've lost the gold-plated, faucets and everything too.
But
so
it's good. We're down here on the 2nd floor. We're closer to the people,
right?
And we're closer to you, readers, and your comments. So, Sarah, did you see anything that caught your eye?
Brian Peterson said, "Pigs are flying." I'm actually agreeing with a Press Herald editorial. This was the one about Real ID and our call on the state government not to race ahead with it because it's an invasion of travelers' privacy. Brian continues, that must have been written as a tilt of the hat to M.D. Harmon. The problem for me, he says, is that the RFID chip included in the ID allows anyone to track one's whereabouts all the time remotely. Toss in the CCTV, smartphone tracking, NSA monitoring, and voila, police state. The databases are intrusive.
Yes, he's right. Maine resisting Real ID is not going to stop that, but it could create, enough of a conversation that we could talk about it. I mean, this is the problem of the last 15 years. The post 9/11 America is how do you? We want government to be capable of identifying every threat before it happens and preventing things from happening. But we don't want them to be intrusive in our lives. And this is going to be, I think, an ongoing issue for a long time.
And I think people aren't aware that the technology that they carry around on their persons in the form of their smartphones can track where they are. That's already come up as an issue for whether police can need a search warrant to search your phone, whether Apple was asking to break into an iPhone after the San Bernardino shooting.
Yeah. Imagine if you could have written a dystopian novel 20 years ago about a device that everybody has to carry around that keeps track of everybody you talk to and everything that you say and think and every place you go, and now we have that device and we are all happily paying to be able to carry it around because it's so much fun.
Right, and people say, well, I don't have anything to hide. I think that there's a difference between saying that and actually pondering the idea of somebody looking at a recording of everything you've done for the past 24 hours.
Or 20 years.
Yeah, that too.
So, okay, what else we got? Glad we could have pleased Mr. Peterson.
Yes. One Mid-Coast Gator applauds and another View guest editorial that took issue with us for calling on the state to just move ahead with the minimum wage referendum. Mid-Coast Gator says, liberals think your restaurant should fail if you can't absorb or pass on the extra costs. Of course, most of these liberals pay $5 for skinny lattes at Starbucks while living in mom's basement. Or the elites have inherited a trust fund from great-granddad who worked his butt off only to see his offspring turn into lazy, naive slackers. In other words, they're clueless.
Wow, how did he know? Yeah. So 2 points. One is if the referendum had failed and the legislature was talking about, this is the minimum wage referendum, if the referendum had failed and the legislature was talking about increasing the minimum wage anyway, would Mid-Coast Gator think that was still a good idea? I don't think so. And the other point about the pay $5 for a skinny latte. Well, anybody who can pay $5 for a skinny latte can pay $5.30 for a skinny latte, and have the person behind the counter take home a living wage. I think we're going to find out that this referendum was not as destructive as these naysayers say, and I think the restaurants will adapt and survive because that's what they do.
Yeah, and every time there's a complaint about the tip credit, the elimination of the tip credit, I've wondered, why do restaurants get to pass along the extra costs of doing business to their customers
Mm-hmm.
when we don't expect other businesses to do that.
Right. I mean, it's a cultural thing, and it's been described. I've heard people describe it like a salesperson who works on commission, but there's a lot of very low wage people working in restaurants, and I think this referendum, I'm glad that it passed, and I hope that the legislature doesn't mess it up.
Gator goes on to cite the war on poverty as destroying the family structure, creating multi-generational poverty, dependency, and hopelessness, and, of course, Democratic voters. That's kind of a stretch, I think.
Yeah. You think? Everything that happened after 1964 is the fault of the war on poverty, right? Right.
And now he's linking it to the elimination of the tip credit instead of, some of the restaurants in Portland are taking an out-of-the-box approach and doing things like making sure that everybody in the back of the house, front of the house gets paid the same, or eliminating tipping altogether.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be a week in comments without Gadfly, and he's had some succinct yet focused responses to our commentary. He took issue with an editorial that urged legislators to legalize marijuana within the 9-month time frame called for in the referendum. Gadfly says, put it off as long as possible. You'd think Kesich et al. Can't wait to toke up.
It's not true. I can wait. And the law says that they're supposed to do it in 9 months, and they want a moratorium that says they do it in 12. What magic thing are they going to do in the last 3 months that is going to make this law palatable to people like Gadfly?
And if you heard our editorial board meeting with the pro and anti legalization people, the person who really wants to move ahead with legalizing marijuana is District Attorney Stephanie Anderson, who complained that the candy she bought in, where was it, Washington State?
I think it was Colorado.
Colorado didn't take effect quickly enough.
Yeah. I think maybe you need to listen to the whole thing because that's a little context. I don't think she would consider herself a proponent for speeding it up, but she does strike me as kind of impatient.
Another comment from Gadfly, the sick meanderings, I have no idea, speaking of context, he just refers to the sick meanderings of Kesich's woefully twisted logic. Is this guy for real? I can't imagine what life would be like with him as a friend. Do you think he has any?
I do have friends. No, that was a.
He has to pay them.
He was responding. My mother pays them, and they're nice. No, that was a response to my nice little Christmas column. Yeah. Like I had tried to go a little light for the week of Christmas, but Gadfly was having none of it and stayed true to himself.
All right. JJFW didn't much like Cynthia Dill's 10 Things to Leave Behind in 2016 column. He said number 1 on that list should be Cynthia herself. Second is Ethan Strimling. Third is Justin Alfond. Are you noticing a pattern? Fourth is Nancy Pelosi. Fifth is Mark Eves. Sixth is Hillary Clinton. Seventh is Shelley Pingree. Eighth is Barack Obama. Ninth is Joe Biden, and 10th is, again, Cynthia Dill.
Well, I guess he gets part of his wish. I think Justin Alfond and Mark Eves will be gone thanks to term limits, and Nancy Pelosi will still be around.
Hillary Clinton's not holding any political office next year.
I imagine that we will not be hearing much about Hillary Clinton, at least in 2017. Joe Biden, who knows? But I think you're going to be stuck with Nancy Pelosi, Shelley Pingree, and Cynthia Dill.
Twice.
Yeah.
And wrapping things up, more from Mid-Coast Gator, who, again...
He's got a lot of energy, and he comments a lot.
Yes, he does. He's our...
We assume it's a he.
This is true.
We don't really know.
He didn't have much sympathy for Erica Burkhart, who wrote about her experience as a mother of a young child going back to school, who benefited from health insurance subsidies through the ACA. ACA is imploding whether you like it or not. Sorry, lady, but that doesn't mean that certain aspects of ACA will not be retained in new legislation. However, requiring every health insurance policy to cover items like birth control, pregnancy, breast pumps, lactation counseling, and yes, even mental health coverage is like your auto insurance covering fuel, oil changes, tolls, car washes, and tires. So apparently, health insurance that encourages people to be responsible and well-rested, healthy parents isn't something that Midcoast Gator wants in his life.
And then just the idea that that only people who need those services should have insurance for them is another way of saying no insurance, because you're just having people who need those things pay for them, and people who are never going to get pregnant shouldn't have to pay premiums that cover pregnancy coverage. The whole idea of insurance is that you spread the cost around.
Oh, here's a great...
Gator. Mr. or Miss Gator.
Gator offers some relationship advice, too. I'd suggest patching up your marriage or dragging him into court. Then find an affordable daycare, move near your parents, and get back to work. Well, apparently she does hold down 2 jobs, so I think she's taken personal responsibility. You've also taken out student loans, probably to maintain your lifestyle.
Yeah, probably.
In other words, your lifestyle as a person who covers her rent and puts food on the table, not just to pay tuition. I don't feel like supporting your bad choices. Apparently, going on to higher education is a bad choice, even though she's teaching nursing at UNE and she's working at the Student Health Center. Mr. or Ms. Gator puts that in the same category as, say, living on a diet of Slurpees from the 7-Eleven.
Wow, tremendous insight.
Yes.
He drew a lot from that column that was not in the words, and I guess that's why people want to write things that we publish, so that anonymous people like Midcoast Gator can come and tell them what's wrong with their lives. It's very useful.
And the idea that mental health coverage is a frill.
Yeah. It is. It reminds me that a friend. Yes, I have a friend. Psychiatrist told her that reading reader comments is a form of self-harm. So.
Is this the post? Is this the self-care imperative post 2016 election?
I think so. Yeah. Just don't really think about what your fellow man says under the cloak of anonymity. Before we sign off, we both lost a colleague last week, very sadly. M.D. Harmon, columnist for this newspaper, and Sarah and I both edited his stuff for the last 5 years since he retired. And before that, he was an editorial writer here and a fixture in the office for a long, long time. And he was a interesting guy, a very intelligent guy, a hard worker, and I found could be quite kind and generous. And very sorry for him and his family, what they're going through this year.
I would agree with that. And whether or not you support his political policies as an editor, I can say that his columns were always cleanly written and turned in on time. He was absolutely scrupulous about that. Yeah. And he was quick to address any questions I presented him with. Even sometimes there was some pushback, but he had the basics down. And as I survey and vet columns every single day, I'm reminded that there are a lot of people out there who do not have the basics down.
Right. He was a real professional. I remember one time he edited a column that I wrote that I knew he was going to hate. It was on a subject that he cared a lot about, and our opinions could not have been more divided. It was on same-sex marriage, and I could hear him. We had a very small office in the old building, and I could hear him working away at it and kind of humping, And then he finished, and he came up with a printed out proof, and he dropped it on my desk and said, "I have marked all the spelling and grammatical errors," and then kind of turned on his heel and marched off. And, the unspoken thing was, I left the ideological errors, all there.
And there was only so much room to march off in
yeah,
that
it was
office.
about 3 brisk steps. But, anyway, it was I had to laugh at the time because it was, I knew what he meant to say. So I will miss him.
Yes, and we had on subjects on which you agreed, on non-controversial subjects such as cats and literature, he and I found common ground quite often. So it's the idea that somebody is as they present themselves in public is not always correct.
Right. So, and with that, we probably maybe we won't be so mean to Gator and Gadfly next time. And so we'll sign off.
Thanks for listening to the Portland Press Herald podcast. Make sure you never miss a podcast episode by subscribing on iTunes or your favorite podcast aggregator. For more of our podcasts, visit pressherald.com/podcasts. Follow the link there to this episode to leave a comment. You can also leave a comment on our Facebook page. I'm Chad Gilley. Once again, thank you for listening to the Portland Press Herald podcast.